Welcome on this fine Thursday. I had to look at my calendar real quick to make sure what day it is. It's Thursday, and hey, we're gonna have a good old time this today talking about agencies specifically, but how to boost productivity and slash risks in 2025. A few little disclaimers as we hop into this. If you're coming looking for like, hey, I'm looking for a technical demo on how to use Platform.sh. We're not going to do that. I don't think we'll even hop into the console that much. This is really going to be kind of more high level business conversation, talking about ways that a cloud application platform like Platform.sh or Upsun, if you're involved in that as well, can bring productivity to your agency and also cut risks, not only for you, but also for your clients and customers, therefore, after. And with that being said, I think we'll kind of hop into this. And I'm going to introduce myself first. My name is Greg Qualls. I'm based out of San Antonio, Texas, in the fine United States of America. I've been married for over 20 years at this point. Been in a relationship with that same woman for over 22 years, as I did the math on that recently. As of October 11th, that was the case. I love Dungeons and Dragons. I can't swivel it. Like, I have two bookshelves. I have this one, which is the pretty one that the wife has put together. If I swiveled over here, you would see just a bookshelf filled with like Dungeons and Dragons books, little miniature figurines of monsters and stuff like that. That's what lets me get out of this world into another world and all that. But beyond that, why would you baby be interested in hearing from me today a little bit about this stuff? Well, I have over 20 plus years in business to business sales, doing direct sales with businesses in multiple industries and backgrounds on that. So I have a lot of understanding of how to talk to businesses and how to think about these things. I have 10 plus years in leadership development. That doesn't pertain to this, but just it's fun to put out there. But I also have 10 plus years in business consulting, working with small to medium sized businesses and helping them understand how to grow, how to reach new clients, and how to do all that stuff. So those are things that I kind of bring to the table. But it's not just me here today. I have my partner in crime this morning, Mr. Paul Gilzow. Will you please introduce yourself?
So Paul, developer relations engineer based in Columbia, Missouri. If you're not familiar with Columbia, we are dead center in the middle of the state between St. Louis and Kansas City. I'm a former customer. After migrating about 400 sites over to Platform.sh and setting up all the automations, decided I didn't want to quit working with it so directly, and so came over to the company as a developer relations engineer. And I've got 20 something, I'm not going to say how many years exactly, but 20 plus years of development experience. So I've been doing this for quite a while. So moving from, the desk underneath or the computer under your desk, and that's where you had everything stored all the way out now to the cloud, kind of that gamut of experience.
I have the pleasure of knowing Paul pre and post coming to the company, so it's been a fun interaction and journey around that of getting to be like, hey, I get to work with this guy on a daily basis now, and him getting to tell me like, hey, whenever we talked about this thing, this is what was really going on. So that's always fun whenever you get to share the tea behind what's going on behind those things. But yeah, so today, as you guys did, we're going to be talking about boosting productivity and slashing risks, but especially for businesses or especially for agencies. And prior to that, we need to kind of set kind of an understanding of like, why is that important for an agency? It's really more so around in those areas of like, what value does this bring not only to you, but to your customers? But at the core of that, why is Greg all of a sudden talking about value at the beginning of this? And the reason for that is, in my mind, and whenever I talk about this, is business, every business, whether you're an agency, where you're a B2B customer, where you're B2C, is about creating value for a very specific group of people. It's about bringing that value to bear. If you're an agency, that's about maybe you're a web design agency. It's understanding you have a specific group, a customer that you're going after, and maybe they're horrible at that. They can't design for the life of them, or they don't understand the key demographic. And the value you bring to the table is the fact that you do understand that and you have those capabilities. And so you bring that. So that's really understanding that piece of it. But diving even deeper in that, I'm going to go through some of these really quickly. What is value? And this is core understanding because we're going to dive into actual some functions and features, but specifically, we want to talk about these parts first. And the first thing is we tend to think of value as like a solution, like, oh, it's a feature. that is brought to a product. And whenever I bring those features out, that's whenever I'm providing value to my customer. And that's great. It's a good place to start. And whenever I started out in sales, that's what I thought sales was all about. Whenever I first went into my very first customer interaction, I remember going in and speaking for like 20, 30 minutes and just talking about this feature and then this feature. And we do this and we do this and you can do this with us and blah, 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 blah. And the customer just smiling and nodding and saying okay, and I walk out of there feeling so good because I was able to talk about every feature that we have. And then the trainer that was with me just asked, "Hey, how you feel?" "I feel great." And he's like, "Okay, tell me one thing I need to know." And he's like, "Okay, what does that customer do?" And I don't have a clue. And he's like, "Oh, okay." So I was feature dumping. I was not focusing on the other side of it of where value kind of starts to build out is our customers have challenges. It's to a very specific people that they have fears, they have things that they're trying to overcome, objectives, and it's whenever you take that challenge that they have, that objective, that goal, and you match it up with a feature that you start building value, but ultimately that's not the total story that we're looking at here. There's one last piece of the puzzle before we get to value, and that's price. That my example of this is like I know right now one of my challenges is I need to take a break. I need a rest. And I know what would a solution to that would be moving to Belize for, you know, a year and just not working at all. And that'd be a great idea. Like, Paul, you're smiling. I think you would agree with this. We could both go with that on that side of it. But ultimately, there's a component there to where it's valuable in mindset, but valuable in reality is I have to pay for that. So there's a price with it. There's a financial aspect of it. Um, so whenever you are though able to combine all three of those things and connect it together, that's where value comes to play. And that's what we're talking about today is the value that a cloud application brings to you, to your clients, and especially in the areas of productivity and reducing risks. That those are areas that you can talk about with your clients on a regular basis. That why you use Platform.sh, why you use Upsun, is why you're using us as a cloud application platform is because the value that it not only brings to you as an agency, but to them as a client, especially in that. Because that's the big power in all this is why use a cloud application platform? Why use Platform.sh in this particular case? Is the same reason you should use it is the same reason your clients come to you, right? Your clients come to you because they have that objective, that problem, that challenge, and you're going to solve it for them. Well, they could try to solve it on their own, but that's not their core competency. That's not what they do day in, day out. That's not their goal as far as that. They don't design web pages, they don't design applications, they don't design campaigns, they don't think through the market and industries and the ways that it works out. They're kind of maybe they don't have the resources internally as far as team members to do that. They come to you as an agency to say, help us accomplish this. This is not our core competency. And so they come to you for that. Well, you as a company then say, hey, we can do this, this, and this. And while you could build out your own platform, ultimately, that's not your core competency. That's not what you came and started doing this in. What you decided was whatever your core competency is, whether that's an agency for education and working with universities, whether that's an agency that deals with e-commerce solutions, specifically like PIMCore, shout out to them who are on the call with us today. Uh, whether it's all those kinds of things, those are like your things you focus on. So what you bring to the table with, or what we bring to the table is the same thing you bring to the table with your customers, is we allow you to focus on that and not have to focus on everything else. And that's what you can then tell to your customers. But I'm not going to lie. There's a challenge of selling value with a partner involved because you're trying to talk to your clients and your clients have customers on their side. So if it's an e-commerce solution, you're selling to them, they're selling to their consumers on the other end. I mentioned universities because that's where Paul comes out of this. Universities have students and they have professors that they're trying to bring in for research grants or whatever. They have students they're trying to get in for enrollment. That's their end client. So they're focusing on that. Well, then you're focusing on your agency, or your agency is then focusing on them as a client who are focusing on those customers. And then we're coming in as Platform SH, and other partners are coming in saying, well, what do we bring to the table for you and to your clients and to their customers? So we're always these levels and things to think about of like, how do we communicate this value? How do we ultimately communicate everything out and across this of saying, here's where we come into play, here's how we help. And as an agency, you're either reselling us or you're referring us to your end client in that case. So, what are the things you could talk about of like, here's why we use Platform SH? Here's the value they bring to us that then brings that value to you directly. And I've found in my 20 plus years of sales, there are four things, no matter what, and every business to business sales interaction that you can talk about. And I call these my value levers. Um, that no matter what, when you talk about these four things, if somebody else is in a business, they're going to peak up and they're going to go start listening and say, well, tell me a little bit more about it. Because these are four areas that every business has a challenge, has an objective, has a goal, has something in it. And if you're bringing a solution to them with a valuable price on it, all of a sudden, bam, you have that value piece partner in there. And those four things are expenses, revenue, risk, and productivity. Every company is looking to make more money, cut their costs, which increases productivity or profit. And then they're also looking to avoid risks. Nobody wants to go to jail or to lose a huge swath of your customers because you had a data breach. And everybody's looking to do more with less. Like, no matter what you talk to them about those things, they're going to be interested in it. And the way I kind of break this up is thinking from a quadrant standpoint, that top piece is financial. It's very much you do anything in that area, you can see on your cash flow, on your balance sheets, you see the numbers directly correlated to those things. So some of these things that we're going to talk about to this morning, you say, well, that could help me cut some costs here and here. Cool. That's great. And we'd hope that be the case. But that's more of an indirect one that we're looking for on that. Or, oh, because of that, I could do this and we could have more revenue coming in and I could see on there. Yes, those are definitely things we could talk about. But this morning, what we're going to be talking about, I say this morning because it's morning for me. It might be afternoon, evening for wherever you are in the world. But for you, we're going to be talking mainly about the operational side of that. Because operationally, with this, whether we're decreasing risks or increasing productivity, those are things that are going to impact you as an agency, but then also allows you to impact your relationship with your clients and their customers and such on that. Whenever you talk about us helping you make more revenue as an agency, that necessarily doesn't translate into more revenue for your customers and clients. So we don't. That's why we're not necessarily talking about that this morning. We'd hope so, but we go from there. So this is just a fun quote that sticks in my head all the time because whenever we talk about operational impacts, this is the thing that sticks in my mind is if a company isn't continuously improving, then it's slowly dying. We always want to be improving our business. We always want to be growing. And that's true for you as an agency, it's true for your clients, and it's true for us as platform.sh that we're continuously improving. We're always trying to look for those areas where we can improve our productivity, where we can cut risks, all those kinds of things. And so whenever we start talking about risks and productivity, here's are some direct correlations that we're kind of trying to hone in on for you as an agency that we're trying to help you avoid or help you be more productive in. Is first is from risks that always comes to mind security. Like nobody wants a data breach, nobody wants all of a sudden their website being hacked, and the next thing you know, it's popping up some uh, all I can think of is I had a WordPress site one time hacked and I hopped on there and it was in Korean, but they also had like some music connected to it. It was interesting, but the song was jamming. It was like one of those weird situations, like you hacked my site, but what is the file for this song? I need it from there. But nobody wants to be in that situation where you're losing money, you're losing a reputation because of that. Safety, we want to make sure everybody's safe in this. We don't want to have situations where somebody feels mentally or even physically harmed because of something that's happened from your site being down. Maybe it's a medical thing, they needed the information. Stuff can happen with that. There's compliance, there's downtime and outages, scalability. Sometimes the biggest problems are growth, right? And the risk can be you grow too fast and you're not able to meet up to that demand. And then all of a sudden the growth dies. We don't want ever that happen. You need something that's going to be able to scale with you in that. So whenever success happens, the problems don't come along with it as much. Client dissatisfaction and then legal. Nobody wants to go to jail. But on the productivity side, it's thinking about your people and how they work. And so thinking about the workflows that are involved with it. How fast can you turn around for your clients what they ask for you and providing that better image to them of saying, hey, we're under promising and over delivering. That all of a sudden it's like, hey, we can get to do that. We think we can get that to you in a month, and they go, okay, that'd be great. That we just need that so fast, and you're able to do it in a week. Those kinds of things of turnaround time, doing it faster, collaboration among your team members and collaboration with your clients. Communication is part of that. Focus. Are you guys focusing on the right things? We talked about that core competency thing. Are all of a sudden your developers spending, 80% of their time focused on the things that don't bring any value to the client or to your company, that it's just there. And then onboarding, how fast you can get your customers up and going and get them paying those invoices. And then authorization, how fast can they get you up and going to get things done so they can start paying their invoices. These are the things that we're kind of thinking about whenever we say we want to make you more productive. Wow, productive. Uh, and we
Sure.
want you to avoid risks. These are the things that we're kind of thinking of. There's probably other things that you could add to those lists as we go through this, but that's what we're really on. But before we get involved really in kind of talking about specifically some of these areas, and that's where Paul's here with kind of banter back and forth around it. I always like to say this. We know there's when an agency is involved and we start talking about productivity, we know there's an elephant in the room, that there's something big that we need to address because the second you start saying, we're going to make you more productive as an agency, I've dealt with many agencies in the past, and all of a sudden there's this kind of like, make me more productive because there's billable hours. A lot of agencies running off billable hours and you say, you're making me more productive. That means I have less billable hours and therefore I have less to charge to my client. And what we're talking about whenever we say we want you to be more productive is not to have less billable hours, but to provide more value to your customers with the billable hours that you're going to give to them. That this differentiates you in the market compared to other agencies. This is something you can talk to your customers about, that it's like, yeah, with you're going with that agency and they're, estimating this will take them, 10, 15 hours to do it in. We're saying it'll take us 10, 15 hours to do it in too. We know from what they're doing, 60% of that time is just going to be setting up an environment, infrastructure, building out all of the pipelines, stuff like that. With us, all of our time is spent on building you a high class digital experience for your customers. That you're able to say, we're able to focus on you more specifically and give you a higher quality product in the same amount of time. And it allows you to have those conversations where you're differentiating yourself because of the cloud application platform that's behind all of that. Okay. So now that the elephant has been addressed, it's there. It can squawk and we can say hello to the elephant and it can walk by. Just know that that's what we're talking about when we do productivity. Okay. So let's dive into some of the expectations, though, that we should have around this. And I've been talking way too much, so I'm going to have Paul maybe pipe up in here. Is as you are a former customer now coming over, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, that there's a lot of features and functionality whenever it comes to cloud application platforms and Platform.sh in particular. And this was kind of a little bit of like what we talked about, from avoiding risks and productivity. When you're looking at a PaaS, cloud application, you're looking at the competitors, this was stuff that you would say that was an expectation. That was the bare minimum. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, mostly. Yep.
Okay. Of these here, what would you say kind of, because there were certain things you're like, well, some had it, some didn't, kind of a thing. Like, what would you say are things that are like key stuff that it's like, I don't know. It's like I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for over 4 years now, or almost 4 years. December 1st is my fourth year here at Platform SH. So of these things, like you go around and you're like, well, some had that, some didn't, but yeah, it should be expected, and why?
So yeah, for us, and I'll clarify. So I worked at a university. The department I worked in was very much like an agency in that departments and colleges contracted with us to manage their web presence and their digital properties. The difference between us and an agency is that how much we could charge was a set amount. So anything that we could do to optimize and do more with less. And I'm glad you mentioned that phrase because that was our mantra, do more with less. Anything that we could optimize, anything we could automate simply meant that we had more time to work on features instead of working on things that didn't necessarily bring value to those departments and colleges. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So for us, version control was exceptionally important because we needed not only that audit trail of what things were changing and who changed them, but security needed that audit trail, and we needed that for collaboration. We had a large collection of developers in a bunch of different areas, not necessarily all in the same physical space. And so we needed to be able to collaborate and see exactly what was changing. Security was always high in mind. I can't speak for agencies, that's not my background, but for us, it wasn't uncommon to have multiple infections of a site on a monthly basis.
Mm.
We contracted out with another university to help scan our presence, and it was a constant barrage. So anything that we could do to minimize those security breaches, obviously as a university, we wanted to do that. Compliance was always important, and CI/CD, again, trying to automate as much as possible. Now, you would think everybody has these, but not everybody does. There are many out there still that don't necessarily have the compliance that Platform.sh has. There's many that don't use Git or have those tight integrations with those version control systems like GitHub and GitLab and Bitbucket, or even having immutable infrastructure. That's another big piece. You want to make sure that whatever path you're choosing, you're able to recreate that entire infrastructure in any case, no matter if it comes down, you need to be able to bring it back up quickly, or into testing and staging and development environments. You need to be able to replicate that infrastructure exactly as it's going to be in production so that you can test those pieces.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's like when I talked with agencies about this, and so like if we're talking about reducing risk and increasing productivity, it's like this is stuff you can get from anybody as you start looking out there. That these are the things that are just common, and so it's one of those things. It's like I never wanted to be in a call and saying like we do this, 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 and this, and then the customer just going, okay, everybody else does as well. And as an agency, you're trying to talk to your client and differentiate yourself in the market as well. So how are the things of here of just like if we were to sit here and talk about the immutable infrastructure and how that helps you avoid risks? Cool. And you as an agency say, well, I'm going to go out there and talk to it. They're going to be like, well, everybody else does that too, kind of a thing. They're able to focus on that. So what we want to do this morning, I keep saying this morning, I should say what we want to do today is really kind of dive into the things though that Platform SH gives you that unique advantage and gives you the ability in 2025 to kind of be more productive and to avoid risks that you couldn't just do with anybody else, that you're going to focus on with us. And this is where I bring in the slide of the things that are unique to us. Now, I always have somebody bring it up. It's like, well, so and so has that. And it's like, yes, but do they have the whole scope of this bringing in? And um, like we always start off with, and in my mind, it's like the polyglot and the framework, the ability of multiple languages and multiple frameworks. This is one of the main reasons you're probably hearing from Platform SH, and you're going to see more coming out in the future. I think Gartner. Oh, we can announce. I can say this now. The Gartner Magic Quadrant came out. We're on it for cloud application platforms, and you're like, oh, isn't that a PaaS? No, it's very different. One of the key differentiations between a PaaS and a cloud application platform is a cloud application platform has to handle a broad scope as far as languages and frameworks are concerned. PaaS is, if you want to be a PaaS, you can just be a PaaS for a single language, a single framework, a single CMS, content management system out there. But with cloud application platform, you need to provide so much more out there whenever it comes to that. And so that's something we could spend probably, I could spend an hour of talking about how that could help you out with productivity. Of the fact of whenever you need to do something, you're not sitting there going like, well, how am I going to do that in this particular language with the framework that we've chosen? Um, and a lot of times you start off in that, but you're not stuck with that. If all of a sudden you go like, well, I could do this so much faster if I just made a microservice in Python to run it this way and just connect to it through some APIs. But we can't do that. We're stuck right now because we have PHP and we got to do it that way. But with us, the productivity opens up because it's like, well, then just create in Python real quick. do the project, and then we go from there. We can also talk about doing that simple as a revenue generating thing for an agency too, because then that turns into a product you get to turn around and start selling to your other customers as well. But we won't go into that. Multi-cloud, especially in today's day and market, a lot of times you're stuck into one cloud, and sometimes you go talk to a client or a customer. I had this multiple times at a previous company I'd talked to, and it was like I'd start going in, start talking about like, and they go, "Well, what are you on? AWS?" And they're like, "We view AWS as a competitor because Amazon.com. We will never put anything on AWS any day." And I was like, "Well, the conversation ended there." And if you're working with a customer that has that same viewpoint, working with customers in certain countries where you're looking at data sovereignty and where it's located at, those are all things that can suddenly cut down your ability to have those conversations. But with us, productivity, avoiding of that risk of losing that customer because all of a sudden they say, well, we want to go somewhere else because they have this option. We can now go with them on this one. Green options. Oh,
Before you jump
Paul,
to
you
the
had
green,
something
yeah,
there. I
before you
love
jump
it.
to green, the other piece with that multi-cloud is from your standpoint and from your developer standpoint, there's no difference between which cloud, any
Yeah.
cloud provider you're going to go with. So if you're on Amazon right now and you have a set way you're configuring the things that you build and the way you want to, the infrastructure that you want, if the next client says, oh, we need to be on GCP, you don't have to change anything at all. It's the exact same. You just choose that region and push that there.
And it allows you to it just I think that's the case of it. Like when we're talking about productivity, but also the risk side of it, of um the number of times that it comes out that it's like, oh, this data center, like all of a sudden something's going on with it, or as that continues to grow as possibilities. I never thought I would ever hear things of like an entire data center going down. And we've had that multiple times in the last few years of going like, oh, well, this whole thing happened. And I'm like, oh, I used to laugh because I worked for a company prior to Platform.sh where it was like I would talk a lot about, high availability and data redundancy and being able to do disaster recovery. And I would be like, if a comet hit a data center, because that was the only thing in my mind that could take it down. And instead, it's junior developer pushing something directly into production. Is That's the modern day comet. Quick thing on green options. That's a huge thing that's going to be, especially in with our European counterparts, where they're starting to hone in on people who are just greenwashing and saying, well, we're sustainable, we're green, but there's no teeth, there's no data behind it. And we're one of the few ones that not only provide the data behind it, we give you that ability to see it from a reporting standpoint, but then on top of that, we give you a discount. Like being able to talk about that to you as a client or as an agency talking to your clients on the other side of that, if they're huge and focused into green and being sustainable, you're not just sitting there going like, oh, okay, well, we're going to go with AWS who said they're going to be net zero, carbon emissions by this date. And then all of a sudden an AI came out and they're starting to roll that back and say, well, we might need to push that out a few more years. We might need to push that out a little bit. And so it's like, oh, we can have real conversations about today what you can do and how we're helping out with that. Our team, I always have that on here because I'm always amazed by the number by the insane intelligence of people at our company. I know for sure we have people that are ex NASA that I've run into. We have one of the main contributors to pip env for Python. I'm like, what? You just find out these things though there that it's like the level of team and maturity around it. Observability profiling, we go in that. We could talk a lot about this, but I want to make sure we have time maybe for questions at the end. So what I really wanted to do, wait, Paul, go ahead. I see the
One
hand go
thing
up.
that's not on there that's incredibly important, and
Mm,
is that with many, especially for your developers, um, a lot of the passes, a lot of the options that are out there, one of the big differentiators for us is that we're incredibly flexible and that we don't impose any specific workflows on you.
yeah.
So this means this opens up the ability for us to mold and bend around your current workflow process without having you try to switch your workflows to fit what we need, what we do. And so for onboarding, especially if you can streamline us into your current workflow, then there is really no additional onboarding you have to do with your devs. And then the next one's coming in, it's just the same that it's always been.
Yeah, I had a customer one time. I was asking them just kind of tell me about your workflow. What do you use as far as that's concerned? Do you use a methodology? And they're like, oh, we do this. I was like, oh, so you're agile. You guys use agile, methodology. And they go, we're agile-ish.
Ish. Everybody's
Ish.
agile-ish.
Yeah, and that's what's coming out of there. Anytime I talk to a developer now, it's like everybody's agile-ish. I've seen a few jokes around that too. Is like, oh, we're agile. Like, really? And it's like, well, we use agile with Scrum deals, and it's like, yeah. And then it all goes down to basically the joke is like, well, we're waterfall with sprints, and it's like, okay, that's how that plays out. Yeah,
Yep.
waterfall. We're agile. I like that. I
Agile.
just saw that in there. Waterfall plus agile. That works in there. Um, Particularly one of the things that we want to hone in on and do the deep dive on, though, that I think really makes unique to Platform.sh is the full stack preview environments. We've been dancing around this on there. And focusing on how does it help you reduce risks for 2025, and then how will it help you be more productive? We're going to kind of dive in this a little bit more, but before we do that, full stack preview environments. Paul, what's a full stack? Like I've heard of preview environments. What do we mean whenever we say full stack preview environments?
So let's talk about full stack first. Full stack simply means the entire stack, obviously, of everything that you're going to need, that you would need in production. Let's just say that, right? So it's going to be the database server, it's going to be the web server, it could be additional services like Redis or Memcache, Varnish. It's all the workers that you might have, all the message queuing, key service, all the components and pieces that you need to build out all the infrastructure pieces that you need in order to build out your application and your services. So what we mean by full stack preview environments is that we're not going to give you just a preview environment of a segment of that or piece of that infrastructure. When we talk about full stack preview environments, we mean all the infrastructure that you have in production. We're going to replicate that into your preview environments so that you can build, develop, you can test, you can stage an exact clones of what you have in production, which means then you can identify those issues long before you bring them into production. Because trying to fix a bug after it has reached production is far more expensive than it is to catch it before it gets there and squash it there. In addition, same thing for staging, right? You want to make sure that your clients, if you are giving them some preview of the thing, you want to make sure it's functioning exactly the same way that they're going to experience in production. So that's why we have worked incredibly hard to build out these full encompassing preview environments. They are exact mirrors of what you have in production.
I know we used to say, or at least I used to say, it's a bit for bit clone of whatever branch because it's not just production. It could be
Uh,
any kind of environment you've
yeah,
created off of there as you go through it. But production's always the easy one. Maybe people just always think of production.
yeah,
And I stepped away from that a little bit, not because it's not true necessarily, but because whenever you say that, people just gloss over it. Like, okay, well, yeah, all right. And you can hone in like, oh, so you mean bit for bit of our code or bit for bit of just code and maybe some of the services and stuff. And yeah, everything. The
everything.
full stack, you're getting every little piece of it. And we say preview environments because that's more we're not the necessarily we're focusing on less of the technical people here. But for your developers, that means they get a full stack development environment that they're able to play in.
I'll give a quick example, one that really is what got me excited about Platform when I was a customer. So we are based on Git. From the beginning, we have built on top of Git the version control system. What that means is when you create a branch in Git, it has the potential to become one of these full stack preview environments. The piece that I've always loved about Git as a developer is it gives me the freedom and the confidence to explore and attempt things. So let's say, as you mentioned earlier, maybe this is going to be faster in a Python microservice. Well, I can now take my code base, I can create a branch in Git, and I can begin exploring in my code, right? And I have full confidence that production's okay because it's in a separate branch. If this particular piece doesn't work out, it's okay. I can cut the branch. I can leave it for a while, and as production progresses, I can merge those changes back into mine and continue knowing then that it is ready to be moved into production. So that's Git. But because we're based on Git, that means now that the infrastructure components are available to your developers to have this same freedom and confidence. So if I do want to experiment with a new language and bringing up a microservice, I create a branch, I change my infrastructure as code to indicate that I need that particular runtime or that service, and can begin experimenting with a clone of production or whatever branch I need to clone off of, or excuse me, to branch off of. But work in that, not only in code, but also in infrastructure, knowing that I'm not gonna affect production. I'm not going to affect any other branches. It's isolated over by itself. And I have that confidence to know that I can make those changes and experiment and play and iterate quickly because I can fail, go again, and build that up much faster.
Just honing in on this. So let's dive a little bit deeper though, because I
Sure.
like that it's like that. I think anybody listening to that be like, oh, I could see how that could make me more productive and how that could avoid
Absolutely.
risks. But let's talk about some specifics with this. So first with risks, you mentioned it already. How would this help with like vulnerabilities, avoiding potential vulnerabilities getting into production?
Well, ideally, you're going to be doing some automated testing, right? And
Yeah.
hopefully, one of those automated tests are going to be static analysis, static security analysis, and possibly dynamic analysis on these preview environments. So you're testing these preview environments for issues, again, long before they're reaching into production. With this particular piece, let's go. Can you go back a couple slides to that risks
Yeah,
assessment?
that's
Then we can kind of just connect the dots to each other.
there we
There we
go.
go. Yeah, so for security, kind of going back to platform in general, platform has always been built with a security first mindset. So the application container is read only except for specific areas that you open up. Those areas that you open up, you have the ability to go in and say, I don't want scripts to be able to execute in this area. So even from there, you're greatly reducing your risk.
Yep.
You move that same thing into the preview environments, they're going to have that same security aspect. Um, where was I
And
going next with this? Go
well,
ahead.
and I think what you're saying with that too is like you're able to test against it
Yes,
and know that because it's exactly the same, if it's that preview environment and it passes the tests there, you know it's going to pass it when it's in production.
exactly.
It's going to act the same way. The next thing that I was thinking about with that is like it's on here is like downtime and outages and scalability. I think is something important to think about with preview environments. That
So
um
I can give you an example
yeah,
from the university with downtime, especially. We had a lot of WordPress sites. And before moving to platform, we were on-prem. And so trying to replicate that preview environment, like, which we automate for you, trying to replicate that was very complex.
yeah.
So what we had is a lot of developers who either weren't given the time or simply didn't want to take the time to move through that complexity and would perform updates in production.
What?
Yeah. So we had a developer who took down the School of Business during enrollment in admissions, the big admissions period, for half a day. So we had significant business loss during that time.
Yep.
Had this been had we already been on platform, that developer could have created one of these preview environments, run through all the updates they might need to do, visually check it, manually check it, run automated testing on it. Again, ensuring that everything works exactly as we need it to long before moving it into production, and then avoiding completely any downtime or outage.
Yeah, even in that, like thinking through that, like you're talking with for universities, it's like what is the time that I'm lost the little word here where they're like registration.
Yeah,
You know,
Rich.
registration is like the Black Friday
Yeah.
comparison kind of it. And being able to in advance, I just did this with Toma like on our live stream a few weeks ago, where we literally were able to go in there and run a test on the preview environment as if it was, because just the same, knowing it's going to react the same way, running that load test on it.
Yep.
And we're not running it on production. And most of the time, that's all you, if you're doing that sometimes with others, you could run a load test on a staging environment, but you're in the back of your head kind of going like, is this really going to react the same once we get into
Right.
production? But with us, it's like, yeah, the resource, you can make the resources exactly the same on both sides and therefore go bam, hit it and say if it holds up, it's going to hold up. And there's always outliers, but at least being able to have a level of confidence in
Yeah.
that of going like this is going to hold up. And then scaling up is as simple as a couple of clicks or a couple of command lines and you're ready to go to scale up on that. And then we could always talk about enterprise and elite support on that to make sure that you have uptime SLA and we're monitoring it, making sure it's staying up for you. Those are all things that come to the table on it as far as from a risk avoidance whenever we come to it. Let's talk now about the productivity side of things, especially because it's 9:45. I want to make sure we maybe have some time for questions around on this
Sure.
side of it too. Is let's talk about productivity and what preview environments bring to the table on that side. Because I don't, we can think about productivity a lot of times when we talk about Platform.sh. You mentioned the Git based, and so workflows, all that kind of stuff. But when it comes specifically to agencies and to the preview environments, full stack preview environments, one of the first thing that comes to my mind is approvals.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
nothing drags down your interaction with a customer beyond like, hey, can you approve this? And they come back and say, well, what's this lorem ipsum right here? And why this graph? I don't like this picture here. What's going on with this? Like, I don't, this doesn't make sense to me. And you have to then explain, well, that's a placeholder because the database, has different content in that data for now, but we can take some time and we can do an export and an import and we're doing all this stuff, but that's time you have to spend on that. Whereas with us, it's you know, branch off, have it there, create it, and the customer says yes, and as soon as they approve it, it's merge into production and you're good to go.
Right.
Um,
And on top of that, that staging branch, I'll say it's a staging branch, right, for an approval. It's not blocking any other continued work. So you
yeah.
can have your developers continuing to work in those other branches, in other preview environments, and then bring those changes back into that again for more approvals. So it's not going to block your workflow. You're not going to have to stop or take that one down in order to maybe say make an emergency change. It's going to be branched off. It's going to be isolated, allowing for them to they're usually slow, right? Customers are
Yeah.
usually slow to come back with that. So it gives you that ability to say, okay, we can take the time, we can let them have their time to come back and make these improvements, but it's not going to slow us down. It's not going to block us from continuing to work.
Well, even in that, you just gave me another idea with that is being able to have options.
Right. Yeah.
So you have two environments where it's like, hey, we did this with this one and this with this one. Which do you
Yep.
like better? Whichever one you pick, okay, we kill the other one and we move on.
Yep.
And it's super quick to do it, those kinds of things. So being able to do approvals, the that leads to my next thing that I think about whenever we think of productivity with clients and customers and all that is what's somebody told me tunnel avoidance. This idea of so many times, like at least in development, it's like you're doing everything, you got it local, you work on it for a month, and then all of a sudden you present it to the client and they go, that's not what we were thinking.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you're able to have that collaboration as you're going through with it, as you have iterations, you're able to say, hey, just real check. Is this the direction you're thinking of? Yes, boom. And you're able to keep working on it, keep going from there. That's a next one. Uh, the other one that was for me that I think you mentioned there too, and I think I covered on there is onboarding new clients.
Mhm.
Like, for, let's use WordPress for example, right? Like WordPress, the power of it is being able to give somebody the ability to create their own content that is not technical at all, right? That they can go in there and create a page, blog posts, those kinds of things really quickly. But there is a learning curve to that of logging in, using those things. And if the only way to onboard them is through the production environment, it becomes this like, okay, we'll create a draft, but don't publish that because it will go public. You don't want to do that. But with this, you can literally clone it. That's the sandbox version that you then allow your clients to be onboarded with whenever you first hand over that project to them. And you can tell them, go in there, do whatever you want with it, break it, do whatever you want to change, add content, see what it's going to be looking like. And in that, you're able to have them see all of it. Now, we do have data separation. So it is true sandbox in that case of like being able if you wanted to move it back in, you're going to have to do a data migration. But in this particular case, though, it giving them an understanding like, no, this is not whatever you do here is not going to make it into production. This is for the option for you to go in there and play and break things and not have that fear that so many people have whenever you first give them a product to try it out and being able to get them onboarding and agreeing to it and comfortable with using the product before they even go into the production version and go with that. I don't know. To me, that's a powerful tool that I at least from dealing with non-technical customers, sometimes that's the hesitation. They're just like, well, I don't know. I don't, and it takes a while for them to adopt it. With this, they're adopting it even more. They're seeing the value in it even quicker, and they're coming back to you even quicker to say, "Hey, can we do another project? Can we do this? Can we do that?" Because of the value brought in and all of that. Last piece of the puzzle here from a productivity for developers that I don't think I have on the list. I wrote it down here too as you were talking. You mentioned, and I experienced this multiple times too, without this for developers, how long it takes for them to be able to get a development environment.
Oh, a
Like,
development environment set up.
yeah, like without, what we bring to the table.
Uh, yeah. I mean, if we're not talking local, that can take a long time depending on what the current infrastructure is. And even with a local, because we have a deep integration with DDEV, even setting up a local environment is streamlined. So I can have a local instance of my production or any development environment on platform. I can have it down locally within just a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Basically, have to have the code repository, tell DDEV, hey, this is a platform integration, and then say, hey, go get the database, go get the files. It pulls it all down, sets it all up, and now I'm running a local clone or a local full stack preview environment locally, and I can quickly make iterations there as well as then take that, what I've done there, and then push that back up.
Yeah, I think I remember talking not to your university but another university, and I was like, "How long does it take you to get a development environment for one of your developers?" And he's like,
Oh,
"Well, we got to put in a request,
yeah.
and then generally it takes a minimum of 2 weeks for that request to be approved, and then about 2 weeks for it to be built, and then even then." Seeing if it actually works and then all that. It's like a month to 2 month process just to be able to get an environment that you could develop in and feel comfortable with and push off from there into staging and into production and everything like that. And for probably the people on here that are agencies and they're using Platform.sh, you're like, yeah, okay, we don't we don't have to do that anymore. That's once again a differentiator that you get to talk to your customers about that maybe another agency isn't bringing to the table. They're talking to another agency that whatever platform they're using or whatever platform they built on their own, the amount of time it takes to get a development environment, and then is it on par? All those kinds of things that you're able to bring to the table with those conversations allow you to be even more productive in those conversations.
So I'll tap into that too and mention that because it's not on any of our slides, we have an incredibly powerful and robust and flexible API.
Hmm.
So for us, when we needed a new site, we needed not just the platform infrastructure. We had a wide collection of other services and pieces that all needed to be tied in and incorporated to this new site. Well, because of the API, we were able to write scripts that automated all of it and took something that might take anywhere, like you said, anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks to fully get, we were able to automate that all down into like a 5-minute process. Just run the script and it created all the accounts, created all the pieces and parts that it needed to. And then we had everything the site needed all at once by being able to tap into that API and didn't have to do any of the manual steps inside of platform.
It's insane the level of I hate to say it, I always forget about our API. And then when it's like I hear customers that have dove into it and utilize it to its full capabilities, I'm just like my brain goes,
Yeah.
okay, I didn't even think about that of the level of automation that you can bring to the table on this for
Yeah,
your
because we're API
clients.
first. Everything we build is with the API first, and then when you do something in console, that's really just a GUI on top of the
Yeah.
API. The CLI tool is really just a terminal tool sitting between you and the API. It's just making it easier for you to interact with it. So everything is API first.
So, uh, we have like 5-ish minutes left.
Okay.
I'm gonna drop. I say if anybody does have a question, drop it in the comments. But I can't see if anybody's typing or not. But I was gonna say this. What
Oh, we
I
do have
know.
one question in the
Oh,
Q&A.
oh, we do.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to read
I
it?
Yes, please, because I
So,
was
yeah.
like I did not see that.
Are there any plans to be able to do platform sync data up to production? So the particular use case is they launch a website, then they have a large phase two with heavy content changes addition. They don't want to enter that content in production initially while they build in QA. They're having to do a content freeze, reset the database, and then import and upload mounts manually. And so the challenge,
Yeah.
I can't say in the roadmap if there is. I know from 20 plus years, the challenge is every framework does things differently. So the way you could potentially sync dev database, a dev WordPress database to production is vastly different than you may do for Acilius or for Pimcore, since they're on here, right? How that the mechanics of that happen is greatly different. So for us to try to come up with an automated way to do that, it would be exceptionally difficult. That said, I don't know.
Yeah.
You can
I
obviously take dev and push it to production and wiping out production. I don't know of any way that we have currently that would merge the two.
Yeah, even from the small stuff, I mean, you're going to run into just from a database little piece of that. I'm like thinking like you're going to almost have to have like a Kafka in the middle, kind of just to like check things and uh
That is a common problem in the space, not just
yeah.
with us, but in the space in general.
I was gonna say in the space in general, I can't think of anybody that has that. But even has outside of the space, just in general, being able to do a quick, easy kind of merge of databases based upon different timelines of what you're doing with them.
Yeah,
Um,
there are ways inside each framework potentially, but then that would be back to
yeah.
the application itself doing it.
So to say that, if it's on the roadmap, I haven't heard it as being anytime soon. I can
Yeah.
guarantee it's not like a 2025. I've heard everything that's planned for 2025. That is not on the roadmap for 2025. But if it was something that came up, and of course, it's always a fun business case, right? So talk with your partner account man or your partner agency manager, and maybe your sales resource or stuff, or shoot me an email. I don't care. I'll of like, hey, here's how I see this being beneficial to people and how we could work on it. Who knows? I'm friends with people in product. I could mention it to them, but I don't know if that's ever going to be something where it's enough of a volume of people that it's like on our side where they're like, okay, well, we need to direct resources towards this at the moment. Um, I know we do have some tools for database migration, but
Yeah.
like Paul said, it's going to write over the previous one. So if you're fine with that, I can talk to some people on our activation team, and there's some tools around that stuff that could definitely help out with that. But you're going to run into a place where it's not going to merge the data, it's going to overwrite the data. And maybe that's fine for you what you're doing, because maybe the database isn't something that's a dynamic database where constantly being added to it. But I haven't run into many situations with that. Overriding is the goal. Okay. I
Well,
just saw that in the too.
that case.
So if that's the case, yeah, there's some tools out there we could probably help you out with that. From if you're in our Discord channel, I can connect you with some people there, but we'll connect afterwards. I, I I see your name, so we'll get going. Anybody else? Or any other questions? Were there any other in the
There was another one. Reducing risk and increasing productivity. We manage a fleet of more than 50 projects in Platform.sh. With version changes and things like MariaDB, we find ourselves having to manually re-import databases because they reset upon upgrade with the known skipping versions may result in data loss. Are there plans to improve or eliminate this need?
uh
It's a good question that I do not know off the top of my
I
head.
don't know. There's always two answers for anything technical whenever I say it. One is I don't know, and the second one is it depends.
Yeah.
I never have a on that one, and this falls more into the I don't know. That is a good question we will take back and see what we can get you on that.
And
from
some
there.
of that is dependent on MariaDB and how it implements its upgrades.
Yeah, which as much as I don't know, I haven't done much with MariaDB. I'm a MySQL guy. So
The one last, I mean, because we're almost out of time, the one piece I
yeah,
want to give in the productivity specifically, because you said doing more with less, is I can tell you from experience, we were spending approximately 150 FTE hours
okay,
providing updates, trying to manage the projects, right? So we had a fleet of 400 sites, and we were having to have a full-time person. That's all they did was updates. Once we moved to platform and we were able to tap into that API, tap into those integrations, and begin automating the pieces around performing updates, we minimized that down to 5 hours for the month. And that was mostly that person just verifying that the checks in the PRs were all green and really just hitting the merge button. That was
yeah,
really all it came down to. Is so from an agency standpoint, again, where the goal of what we provide is to allow your developers to spend less time doing that rote manual work that really doesn't bring value, and instead allow you to automate all of that and then focus again back on working on those things that truly bring value to your customers.
and because of that, allowing you to differentiate yourself from your competitors
Exactly.
and show that value to your customers. Because sometimes they're just like, oh, it's a hosting solution, right? It's like, no, this is a bigger solution than just that.
Yes.
Helping, why we talk about helping avoid all those risks and helping me bring more value to you as my client and as my customer in this. Well, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you for everyone who joined us this morning. It's always a great time to be with everyone. And as always, if you have any additional questions, have any needing additional information, go check us out at platform.sh, upsun.com. If you haven't checked out our agency partner program, if you're not an agency with us, go check that out. That will get you access to what I was just missing. You get an agency partner manager, so somebody that you can ask questions to directly, set up meetings with our sales team, our solutions architects. We're always here to help in any way we can. Join our Discord channel, and that will give you direct access to a lot of people as well to answer those things.